Hello everyone. So we are in week 2. So before we get started, I just wanted to recap what we did last week. So last week we worked in week 1. So we were learning all about the person first language. You did have some items that you needed to submit for service learning. And remember, I did want to remind you that all of the service learning documents is underneath module 1 getting started, and you will click on service learning. I've had a lot of emails and questions and calls regarding service learning. One of my biggest pieces of advice is keep doing what you're doing, reaching out to me should you have trouble, but please make sure you're reading the approved list. Make sure you're reading about where it states of what the timeline and checklist is. And another question I'm getting to is about how to join. Not all of my students have joined the teams for service learning. Remember, this is very important because this is where all of your documents are going to be submitted, that the service learning coordinator is going to look at to make sure that you are on track and we have the documentation that we need. Another thing to remind you of is you need to purchase liability insurance. So this is either going to be Aon or STEA. So your options there are listed. If you choose Aon, again, you can do that by going to the Water State Cashier's office and purchasing it there, which is obviously the cheaper option. You also need to schedule a TBI background check. If you work for a school system, please make sure that, and you've had one within the last 2 years, please make sure you email me or get in contact with me so we can discuss that. You will be completing your service learning application, your VECHS waiver, your service learning release hold harmless sheet. All of those are going to be put into the Teams folder. That's why we said it's so important. And if you look here, as you're watching this, the date has already passed. Now, for the background check and your liability insurance, that's not due till September the 7th, so you still have time to get that done. But as always, just reach out should you have any questions about that. I did include an overview video for you. If you've not watched it, it's very helpful. It goes into detail about the steps you take and what you do to get prepared in this process and how it works. There's also a service learning manual that I would like you to read as well that explains it a little bit further as far as the steps that you take and what you need to do. So moving on into Module 2, like I said, we recapped with Module 2 week 1 last week, and we went all over the person first language. Now, the only homework that you had to do, obviously, was besides completing your documentation, you did have assignment. So you had to complete your self-assessment discussion board for person first language, and then we also had a module, an IRIS module called Perceptions of Disability. Now remember, you were to complete the IRIS module and assessment, but you were not to submit anything to me. The only thing that you're going to actually physically do besides joining teams and submitting your service learning documentation is going to be to complete your discussion board. So now we're in week 2. So this week, we're really going to be diving into the history of special education and looking at special education law. Now, we'll warn you, this is a lot of information this week, right? So I try to compile as much as I can. Like I've mentioned before, this is actually a introductory course. So we're only getting a little tip of the iceberg here. But always make sure you're looking at the overview and the outcomes and keywords, because this gives you an idea of what our goals is, what our objectives are, how do the activities we're doing relate to our course outcomes and our objectives for the week. And then it kind of gives you just a snippet into what we're going to be doing and how you're going to be assessed. And then also you will look at the keywords and concepts that will be important to go along with our content this week. So as far as assessments this week, you will have an assignment that you will be doing that's worth 25 points. And we also have some ways for you to test and get feedback by a little game that I have for you called History of Special Education and the Laws, and matching the laws. So that's a really fun game. You are going to get feedback. That's why it's under assessment, but I will not be giving you any points. You will also be getting points, 10 possible points for the reading article discussion. So remember, the reading assignment discussion, or as I refer to them as RADs, You have 4 that you have to complete this entire semester, and I told you that I will be choosing the first article for you. Well, this week is when you're going to complete your first rad. And then, of course, we have a Quizlet, which is just to test yourself and practice about the special education law. That gives you feedback, but also it's a great way to study for our first exam when it's time. Okay, so you will be reading Chapter 1 in A Teacher's Guide to Special Education. Now remember, that is the PDF version. So this is a supplemental resource that we're using. So make sure if you haven't downloaded, I put the link there for you. So you're only reading Chapter 1. You are also going to be looking at pages 8 through 18 in the Exceptional Learners textbook. So make sure that you read that. So that's going to be your reading for this week. Now, I have a really good supplemental resource that kind of gives you a snippet into the history of special education. Because remember, we're looking at the history in terms of the law and the advocacy groups that paved the way for our legislation. But we're also looking at what was it like a long time ago for those who had special needs, right? So this website is amazing. So this will allow you to kind of look, what was it like in the 19th century, the 18th century, the 16th century. So when you click on the link, it's going to come up with the website. And it's broken up into different eras of time. So part 1 you will see is the ancient era. Okay, so this is around 1500 BC all the way to around 475 AD. And then it goes through the Middle Ages, the Renaissance period, the Reformation, then we have 17th and 18th centuries, the rise of the institutions, the 1800s to 1950. Then we've got the Reawakening, the independent living movement, and self-advocacy movement. Then we move into part 2, which is kind of like from 1950s all the way up to today. And when you click on, say we want to go to ancient era, it's going to bring you up to another page. And this is really going to give you some background and history into what it was like if you had a child with special needs, or if you yourself were, or someone in your family. So it's going to tell you the rulers during that time and how society during that time viewed those who had special needs. So, and you will navigate through the pages by clicking the next bar. Okay, and that's how you'll do it. And you can see at the top, you can use the tabs to also navigate through the different eras. So you don't have to always go all the way back out where you started at. So that's a really useful toolbar for you to have. So this is just something interesting. You might want to save this and bookmark it, because I think you'll find some very interesting information in it as well. The next piece of learning resource that I give you is going to be kind of situated in talking about the history of special education law. So this is important. Please take notes when you review this, because this is what we are going to have on our exam, some of this stuff. So as you go through it, it's going to talk to you how special education has evolved in the U.S. So specifically, the U.S. is what we're looking at. And it's really going to talk about the legislation and the parent advocacy groups and how it came to be and how the laws got passed. And as you're going through, you're really going to start to see those definitions and key terms that we talked about. And I did want to mention, I did have that game in there for you where you can match the law at the end. So this is going to be very useful for you when you want to get some feedback into how you're doing matching the laws. So please make sure you refer to that PowerPoint. And you may want to save it as well, because that's going to be a great study tool for you later on. Next, we have our citations and references. Okay. As you can see here, this is wonderful, because I referred to this last week, but we didn't have anything. But we have a section under discussions called questions about the course. If you have any questions, obviously you can email me or give me a call, but this is another way that I'll be able to answer questions. So I can get on here, you can, so you may want to check it to see what kind of questions people are asking, because it may be something that you have a question as well. So when I see them, I'll go in and answer it, and then everyone will be able to see your answers or see my answers. So that tool is always there for you. You can always find it under communication, under discussions, and it's called questions about the course. So I'm going to go in and answer those, so you should be able to see that. Okay, now I told you we were going to talk about your assignments. So let's go ahead and start with the reading assignment discussion, because that's something that you will have to complete, and that's what you will be assessed on. So you'll see here I provided you with the article, so this is one you will not choose. So I choose the first one, then you get to pick which other three you want to do. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull up the article. It's called Confronting Difference. An excursion through the history of special education. So what you're going to do is you're going to read the article. Okay, you can take notes, you can highlight it, save it, print it out, whatever you want to do. Then you're going to have a link underneath it that should take you to the discussion board. Now, each rad that you complete, so all four will be the same, I ask you the same following prompts. There's 3 prompts which you're going to answer. The first thing you're going to write about in your discussion from the article that you read is, what were the 2 or 3 most important concepts from the reading? And I want you to make sure that you're looking at it as a future teacher. And then you're going to tell me why those were ones that stood out to you or you found most important. And I want at least 2. You don't have to do 3 concepts, but you have to mention at least 2. The next prompt is one thing you're not clear on. So sometimes we read an article and there's some things we have questions about or we don't really understand, or that you would have liked the author to have elaborated on a little bit more, or maybe it posed a question when you read something. So this is a great way for you to discuss on that prompt. And then the last one is going to be something that you would like to ask your classmates about their understanding or their thoughts on the reading. And this is a really good way for us to interact and to add something to the discussion board. Because remember, you have to reply to at least 1. I know it says 2 classmates, but since this is such a large class, if you want to just do 1, that's fine. To get full points, you do 2. If you want to do 1, if you do not do at least 1 and you reply to no one, I will not give you credit. So remember, I agree or good job is not a valid response, and that does not earn you full credit. I did provide you with a rubric. This rubric is going to really break down how I'm going to grade you on this assignment. And this assignment is worth 10 points. Okay. You'll see here, when I go back into assignments, I wanted to show you, you will see that you do have some other documentation that is supposed to be turned in and completed. Now, I have gotten the list from the Service Learning Coordinator, so I see who has provided proof of liability insurance and then that they've had their TBI background check. Now, this letter I've had a few questions about. This form is only if you work for a school system, okay? So if you work for a school system as, say, a teacher's aide or substitute, I will have your employer fill out a form for you, and that just states how long you've been there, that you're employed with them, that you've had your TBI background check for that position, and when did you have it done, and if there were any indicators. And your employer will fill that out, and then that will get uploaded into your teams. So that's what that is. If you don't work for a school system, then don't worry about that. But you will submit your proof of liability. Remember, that's either your AON or your STEA. Now, the other thing that you have to notice here is the historical figures activity. Now, this is worth the most points in this week for assessments. This is worth 25 points. So what I want you to do is you're going to be creating a book, of someone who is a historical figure, okay? So someone who made an impact in special education. They made a contribution, and it was a positive impact. So you're going to create a little book that gives us a little glimpse into that person and how they impacted special education. The tool or the software we're going to be using is called Book Creator, okay? And that's where you're going to create your book inside this software or inside this program called Book Creator. So I'm going to show you the steps you need to be able to complete your book. So let me close out of these. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to have to pick a person. So I want you to choose a person from the list of historical figures. Now when you click on it, it's going to bring up a Word document. So here is a list of people you can choose from, and you're going to choose one of these. Now you may choose someone that you know a little bit about or you've heard about, or you may choose someone on here that you don't know anything about. So I just want you to choose a person. Now you're thinking, well, I don't know what they do, so I don't know if I really want to choose that person. Well, I have actually have a little tutorial link here that's going to give you a little insight into the actual person. So you're going to hit brief look into historical figures. And this is a little synopsis. It's not all the information you'll need, but this gives you a clear idea of the different people on the list and if it's someone that you'd want to do a little research on. So this is provided for you as well. And like I told you, the first one I clicked on was your list. It's a Word document. This one here is a look into people so you can see if you would actually like to create your book on that person. The next link is Book Creator. I'm going to grade your assignment in Book Creator. You will create your book in Book Creator. You will not upload or submit anything to Dropbox, okay? So I will go in there and grade it, and that's where you will put your assignment and create it inside of Book Creator. Now, in your book, the things that I want you to include is think about if you were reading a nonfiction book about someone. You obviously would have pictures of what they look like or pictures of their contribution, how they impacted, maybe their education. So these are things that have to be included inside your book. So you want lots of pictures, the name, the year of birth, year of death, their country or origin, where they did most of their work. Maybe you want to include where they were born and a little background. Then you can do educational or professional background. So this is where their career field is, right? Their educational background and how it impacted special education. Then I want you to talk about their particular area of interest in working with individuals with disabilities and the 2 significant contributions that they made to individuals with disabilities. You do have to list 2. So all that information must be included in your book. Now, I do have a rubric here, but before we get to that, I want to explain how you do Book Creator. So you will have to create an account in order to be able to use the tool. So what you'll do is I have a link here called Book Creator, and it will open in a new window. So once you click on it, you're going to have to sign up for Book Creator. And when you do that, it's going to ask you for a code. You're going to use this code here. So this is for our class. So whenever you use this code, that'll allow me to see your book once it's created, and I will go in and grade it. And everyone else will be able to see your book as well. But in order to get into our class, you have to use this code. So when you click on the link, it's going to look like this. You're going to click sign up, make an account. Once you do that, you will enter the code. Now, every time you get into Book Creator, okay, so you can save it, or you can go back to week 2 every time and just click on the link, whatever's easiest for you. But once you have an account and you put in the code, you should be able to sign in. When you sign in, it's going to look a little bit like this. You're only going to see one book, and as more students complete, you will see more student books. Now, this one is from a prior student. I left it to use as an example of what I'm looking for. Now, one thing I did want to mention is just like any book you read, you have to cite your sources. So please make sure that your very last page is going to be your reference page. Make sure that you include your citations showing me where you got your information. That will be your assignment worth 25 points. Now let me go ahead and show you the rubric and break it down how you're going to be graded. So I'm going to grade you on 3 different criteria. The first one is historical figure. Are you including all the information that I asked for? Are you telling me where most of their education experience was? What was their background? Where was most of their work done? How did they impact special education? Okay, and you were picking someone from that historical list I provided. The next thing is I'm going to look at errors in spelling and grammar. And the last one is that you actually used the tool Book Creator. You did research outside of the tutorial I gave you. This is just a snippet, remember? So you had to do some research outside of what I gave you, and that you were citing your sources. That's part of research. So those are the things I'm going to be looking at. Altogether, that can earn you a total of 25 points. Remember, as I mentioned here, you do not upload anything or submit to Dropbox. You will create your book inside of Book Creator, and then I will grade it from there. Okay, as you scroll down, I do have that Quizlet I talked about. Quizlets are wonderful because it's a really great way for you to test your knowledge, to give you feedback. The link will be offered there for you. It's a great way to study, guys, because we offer a lot of information in this. We talk about the history, all the laws and legislation, so it's important for you to make sure that you're testing your knowledge. And when you get into it, you're going to see SPED, the laws. I want you to click on it, and then you should be able to see the quizzes where you can start quizzing yourself. So you should be able to just click on it. Okay, here it is. It'll take a minute. So just make sure you click on our class, SPED. And then if you notice, there's lots of different tools here. You can play a matching game. You can give yourself a sample test. You can do flashcards, or you can click learn as well, kind of like notes. So there's lots of different ways for you to use this tool to help you study. Don't forget to use the PowerPoint that I provided for you. It does have some great information and resource for you for studying for our first test. So make sure that you're doing that as well. I also wanted to remind you that if you are behind as far as service learning and you've not completed your service learning application or have really done any of those things, I have been sending emails to those who have completed certain things, or if I'm missing something. I did want to remind you that once you have joined the service learning teams, the service learning coordinator is going to be in there looking at your information every day, right, to make sure you're submitting the right documentation. If there's something that you have to redo or it's returned to you, she's going to be reaching out to you through Teams in that chat. So make sure you're in Teams every day. And if there's something missing or that she needs you to redo, that's where she'll contact you. So just keep that in mind as well. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, okay? All right, guys. Well, I hope that I don't know when you're watching this, but I hope that you had a great long weekend and a great week. And until next time, take care.